we thought about, we needed a topic. And as we're sitting here planning together the launch for the new book, you said, why don't we use the launch for the new book as a topic? And I was like, yeah, why don't I go ahead and hit record on this here Zoom meeting that we're having. So what you built was a publicity plan, and all I've literally done is talk to people. And then when you showed me the publicity plan, I just start plugging their names in, right? Like, here's some people who can help, here's some influencers, here's some, and so you gave me this outline, and I just went in and started adding some details. And this is the process that we use for pretty much everything we create.
Yep.
So you said accidental ebook. Walk us through that. How did we end up with an ebook?
Okay, so COVID-19 happened. The whole world went home. You and I have always been remote workers. We prefer to work out of our houses. So when, of course, this huge shift happens, and so the bloggers will come out of the woodwork and be like, this is the hot topic. This is what's trending. Work from home, remote work. My kids are driving me crazy, all this kind of stuff. So the bloggers have to jump on it. We were a little more hesitant. We're like, well, I don't really think that, the world is quite ready for all of our genius yet.
Well, there was so much noise.
I know.
I think you're right. Like we figured our genius was too good to waste on the noise, right? There was
I say
so
that very
much.
tongue in cheek, by the way.
I don't. I think we're 100% starting a revolution here. Like, we both have Hamilton posters in our backgrounds for a reason. I mean, I fully believe in this as a revolutionary step toward freedom on so many levels, right? And so I think we didn't want to stop at create a clean space for your work environment. We didn't want to stop at those surface tips that seemed superficial that a lot of the bloggers were putting out there. We wanted to go deeper, and we thought it needed time.
How it originally, one of our weekly, like, let's talk through what the mission is this week and everything. Weeks ago, we discussed, like, hey, I've seen some of the stuff coming out of the blogging community. I've seen some of these, download my, remote work guide. I've scanned through them, all this kind of stuff, but I don't think that it's really going to.
So you didn't want people to think of this as a temporary fix.
No, I wanted people to, when they fully understood the potential of remote work, if it is actually approached as a work life, if they could really learn what that is, then they would understand that this doesn't have to be a temporary solution to our current crisis, that they could actually change their work life and therefore their entire life for the better. And so several weeks ago, when we first, when we said, hey, we need to put some content out there on remote work, I said, okay. And we, I began our typical process. And by our typical process, I mean, you, Kasie, and me, Jody, the way that we always approach a brand new problem. And that is, I did my little brainstorming and wrote up a very rough outline. And as I started outlining and started realizing all the nitty gritty of remote work and everything that we've put into it, and then started thinking of, okay, so it's not just me. It's not just my desk is in an armoire, so I call it my office in a box. It's not just that. It's not just the fact that I need quiet, at least when I have to concentrate really hard. It's also, how do I work within a team, within our team? How do we communicate with each other? Not just the technical aspects of communication, but all of those, avoiding hurt feelings and getting your point across and the drama of communication. How do we do that remotely in a way that it actually works and it works for the long haul? And that I don't feel like I work for some mysterious robot far off into space, that I work for and with real people who I have relationships with. So as I started outlining this, and then I sent you the outline, and I was like, hey, this is long. And P.S., there's a whole section on the work models and the way of working that you designed that I think is important that we put in here, but this is long. And instead of saying, Jody, we need to capitalize on this right now, we got to go, go, go. And so instead of you just putting your thumb down on my forehead and say, get me copy in a week, I don't care what it is, just get it to me so we can roll something out. You said, okay, keep drafting. Let's start drafting and revising and let's see where this goes. So that drafting and revising process took probably 2 to 3 weeks of us kind of going back and forth and, and me even going to you like, hey, do you mind if this is kind of a storytelling narrative within it and not just a bunch of checklists? And there are lots of checklists because God knows I love a checklist, but I'm a storyteller. You are a storyteller. That's how we explain. That's how we promote ideas, is through storytelling. And I think personal anecdote is far more captivating than speaking only in industry or academic terms as far as the reader. Like, I don't want people to fall asleep when they're reading something that I wrote. I really try not to put them to sleep. So,
well, let me weigh in real quick on that, because I think your storytelling is compelling. And I think in this book, at least, your voice is very clear. It's obvious you're excited about this topic. It's obvious you feel good about what you're showing other people and proud of what we've been able to build together. And on the passages that I wrote that were more coming at this from a structural perspective, an organizational perspective, an academic perspective, your voice helped me soften up some of that language and helped me really pull in the right stories to explain how this kind of thing works and the right anecdotes for how this kind of thing works. So I think it was just a really good collaboration of it's certainly not an academic text. We don't have any empirical evidence yet. Come to volume 2 and volume 3, there'll be some empirical evidence. But in this one, there's not any empirical evidence. It really is anecdotal. And it reminds me of like Spencer Johnson, Who Moved My Cheese, only it doesn't feel cringy in that way, right? It doesn't make you go, stop talking to me like I'm a kindergartner. This is for a real adults. It is about a real adult situation. But the language is easy enough to connect to.
Yeah. And I come at this at a place of extreme sincerity, in that when I tell people how unhappy I was in my traditional work life, I don't think they quite understand just how unhappy I was. And so therefore I want people to be able to read this ebook and not only feel more comfortable making the transition to remote work for their company or within their own role, but I also want them to know how grateful that I am for the opportunity to be able to live like this. Because I come from a place of gratitude with this. And so I want other people to have the privilege of actually being excited about what they work on. And this project I was really excited about. And I was excited about it because of the way it evolved, that I wasn't forced to follow some upper level, this is your assignment, Jody, and you will
it's called a directive.
I didn't really have
there's that academic bullshit again.
Yeah, I had hey, Kasie, what do you think about this idea? Let's put some stuff about remote work out. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Let's do that. Okay, cool. I'm wondering what it'll look like. Let me do an outline. And Kasie goes, outlines are for wimps. Let me do an outline. So that's how it always goes. We do the outline because it's important.
Yes.
And so then what happened over several weeks is this really started to evolve into a story, into, two women that said, screw these people that are making my life miserable. I'm smart enough and capable enough, and gosh darn it, I'll make people like me. So we charged forward. And then after, then we started revising, and I think both of us came to the epiphany at the same time of accidental ebook. What? So as we're reading through it, we get on one of our weekly calls again, and you're like, hey, I was just talking to a publisher friend of mine, and I think we have an ebook. And I was like, hey, I was just having that same thought. What do you want to do with it? Well, let's sell it. Heck yeah. So that's what I mean by accidental ebook. You have to put the work in, but even before you put the work in, you have to allow yourself space to create and to be innovative. You have to allow yourself the ability to fail, to take that risk. And that's where without trust, like if I thought that I would be ridiculed for wasting time, you wasted time. This was a waste of an idea. No, we're not going with it. I've been in jobs where innovation was scary because you didn't know how the higher ups were going to view your innovation, and were they going to view it as a waste of time, and they go, what are we even paying her for? Because of the knowledge alternative models that are mentioned, those are the models that Kasie has devised that we work under at Clemson Road. So because of those, I am allowed the freedom to comfortably innovate.
I think there's a part of that too, that part of the story that we wanted to write this book a long time ago. We started this book a long time ago, and I tried to pants it and you tried to shape it into an outline, and we couldn't really find the pay dirt with it, right? So we had some pieces that we kind of played around with, some stories we kind of played around with, and we knew where we were sort of coming from, and we wanted to capture our experience. But something else that happened this summer was I'm writing the practical entrepreneurism for the textbook for my class. And so I got into this habit of writing nonfiction chapters and then sending you the nonfiction chapter for revision and edits. And we were working really closely on that under the watchful eye of another publisher. And even though what we've created here with Redesign work is not in any way a textbook, we needed that same kind of rhythm of a creation and a revision and a creation and a revision. Only in this case, we flipped it, and you were doing the creation and I was doing the revision. And I thought we had created such a nice rhythm of that in the April, May, June timeframe to meet the textbook that it almost seems so natural to also pair this other thing that we've been trying to do for a long time into that same rhythm and get it working in June and July. And so I feel like in all professional pursuits, as you're learning new skills and you're evolving, you apply those skills to the next project. And Definitely. In this case, the skills we learned on practical entrepreneurism, we just applied it to this project, and it went a whole lot better this time around than it did the first time we tried this book.
Yeah, I also think because when we first tried this book, it was a couple of years ago, I was still really new to the idea of working remotely with a team. I had been working remotely by myself, but not with a team. And so I think it took me a little while to really kind of plant roots in the remote world and really understand how to be productive and trusted. I talk a lot about how to get your employees to trust you remotely, but there has to be onus on the employee of how do I get Kasie to trust me, that she can give me a deadline, know that I'm going to meet it, and not that you are a micromanager, but if you were, like, how do I get her to back off and just let me do my thing? Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out a lot of those aspects of remote work and so I think this summer, starting last spring into the summer, where I started watching friends and family members who were so used to working in an office all of a sudden be thrust at home. Mm-hmm. And living, as shut-ins and really struggling with it.
Yeah.
And so as I was watching their struggle, thinking, wow, I'm really fortunate because this is a part of the pandemic I don't have to struggle with. I already know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
that part of my life has not been disrupted, other than occasionally there's a 5-year-old little boy running around here.
Except that we were given this tremendous opportunity now, because to your point, people are struggling with this. And while up until now, we've kind of taken it for granted that we are doing this relatively seamlessly. A year ago, I tell people this all the time. A year ago, I couldn't get anybody to talk to me about this. I couldn't get them to participate in our research. I couldn't get them to consider adopting this for their own company. Like a year ago, it was like remote work. Who cares, right? And now, I mean, with the podcast I was on today, the guy was like, your phones must be ringing off the hook. I'm like, if people who know us, yes, who know that this is what we do, they're calling and saying, how do you do it? How do you handle it? But there's a lot of people that don't even know this is what we do. And so now our challenge is, how do we get it out there and let people know we are legitimately experts at this?
Yeah. And so what we realized through the process of creating our accidental book, it's like the best accident I've ever had in my life. It wasn't nearly as painful as my accidents usually are when I fall down on the floor. So it was really great. I'm so excited about it. But so you established really what the heart and soul of this project through the title of the book, and you named the book, and it's Redesign Work Volume 1. There will be follow-ups. So advanced copies. No, I'm kidding. So, this is Redesign Work. Mm-hmm. I said, this is more than just know how to work from home when you have to, because the next pandemic is, hurling down the interstate. This is redesign your work life. And here is a blueprint of how to do this from start to finish. Here is how you can take your company, for any CEOs, presidents, founders that are watching this that are like, what? Things went really awry in my life during this crisis. And so now I'm doing this startup thing. I've been wanting to do it for a while, and I'm going to do it. Well, this is a how-to book. That's a really easy read that will tell you, how do I find the right employees for remote work? How do I train employees to be remote employees when the, office environment is so ingrained in our cells? How do I, encourage them toward productivity and growth and innovation? How do I get everything that I need to get done with my company done in 7 different locations? And it's what I'm extremely proud of. It actually walks the person through the process in very simple terms, because I do not have a PhD vocabulary like
it's not. So let me
Kasie
let's go back real quick though. So the reason it's called Volume 1 is because, back to the earliest part of the conversation where we said we're not sure the world is ready for the brilliance of this quite yet. I really do believe that we have an opportunity. Everybody in our knowledge economy has an opportunity to reevaluate the way they have been working and redesign work. Come at this from a perspective of, if it doesn't work for everyone, then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And your 8 to 5 on site, counting the hours, 40-hour a week, all that bullshit does not work for everyone. People have been trying to make it work for themselves. They have been contorting themselves for you, Mr. Business Owner, for years, but it does not work for everyone, and therefore it does not work. And I think when we think of Redesign Work as Volume 1, as an introduction to autonomy, this is what freedom looks like. This is what it could be like. And then in subsequent volumes, be able to expound upon different places here. So we introduce the 3 work models. We introduce communication strategies. We introduce how to create a results-oriented environment. We call upon some of the sources that we read to get ready for this. There's a lot of additional reading beyond our book. But the idea here is to open up that conversation and to get people thinking, gosh, what if? What if it didn't have to be the way it's always been? And I think it's effective because it's not a long volume and it is in understandable terms. And it does come from two people who are very passionate about this. And to your point, grateful that we've had the opportunity to live this way. All right. I'm going to stop the recording here. I think we've probably pontificated enough, but I just wanted to put in this particular episode the process by which we came to this accidental ebook. And I think that will be a good earning mileage episode. Yeah. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, leave comments for us, and by all means, go out to Amazon and buy the book. Thanks, Jody.
You're welcome.